Okay, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today I have something a little bit different, whereby I'm taking a previously modified Game Boy, demodifying it, and instead installing it into a nice, completely translucent housing. Lovely, kind of like mirror finish rather than like a smoky or a kind of like semi-translucent finish. This is clear. And then I also have a FunnyPlaying improved speaker for the GBA, a lot more powerful. And then to go along with that, I have two products from Angry Helder. One is a GBA power cleaner, so that just cleans up the power coming in. Really important if we are doing an IPS mod, which I'll try to do on this. And then also, again from Angry Helder, this is a Flex GBA amp, so this will help to improve the audio and give a lot more louder, clearer audio, especially for this improved speaker. So I said it was a little bit different, and we are demodding this one here. So let me just set these to the side. We are demodding this one for a couple of reasons. The first being, I need a motherboard, kind of like a donor one, and I don't really fancy buying GBAs at their current price, so I'm more than happy to take one that I've already previously modded. And the second reason is because this one, again, if people recognize it or remember, I did a video where I installed a wireless charger into a rechargeable battery pack using the rechargeable battery USB board. Now, the reason why I'm kind of undoing this is because, one, I don't really play this GBA anymore, if at all. And two, this TP4056, I think the board is, these are not really recommended anymore. They are fine for charging a USB battery or over USB, but they don't allow you to kind of play or power the device and charge it at the same time. They do allow it, it just produces a lot of heat. And when this board is situated next to a lithium-ion battery, excess heat could cause problems and could cause the battery to, I don't know, set on fire, malfunction, or just not perform as it should. So I'm going to get rid of the battery mod on this Game Boy Advance. It doesn't power on. I assume that battery is completely dead, which is another problem with these lithium-ion batteries. Once they go beyond a certain point, they are not really revivable. Once they reach a certain level, you can force a charge out of them, but there could be some irreversible damage done to the battery inside. Anyway, enough said. I'm going to take this apart and basically just remove the motherboard from this GBA. So the problem we have here is this battery cover is attached to the battery. So there we go, got the back shell off. Bumpers, they've come out. Again, this is all a aftermarket shell, bumpers, buttons and everything. And here's the battery. So now we just need to remove the board from the shell. So that's over to a Phillips. Two, and I think there's three, but maybe I didn't put a third one in. No, I didn't. Okay, so disconnect the screen, the ribbon cable at the top. Should pop straight out. And then we have the screen is not a backlit one, as far as I'm aware. Let me just dump these buttons out so they don't fall everywhere. There we go. I think that's the original screen, because it isn't moving, but we'll go ahead and power this on, and I'll connect the screen back up in a second. So what I need to do is desolder the battery terminals here, so I'll get my soldering iron turned on, and let me see if I can disconnect the wireless charger shell part. So I'll desolder the terminals from the board there. I will have to replace or put back those battery terminals so that when it's put back to the original shell, it has contacts for the AA batteries when they go in. Okay, with the battery removed there, try not to have these two wires touch. Now I just need to remove it from here, so I don't really need to do that on camera. That's just obviously not for this, it's not going to be important for this project, but I just want to make sure that I don't leave this to the side and there's wire exposed. So I'm just going to disconnect a couple of these. I'm just checking to see if it's swollen. I feel like this battery is swollen ever so slightly, which isn't great. Yeah, that feels swollen actually, so this needs to be disposed of. But let's just see what we've got running across this. Yeah, that battery is absolutely flatline, zero, dead. There is no point. Well, I've revived a battery like this before, but I've been reading online that it's not good to do that. It's bad for the battery's health. Once they reach a state of, in fact, I'm just going to try and see if we can see a better, that's as far zoomed as I can be. Once they reach a state of dead, as in zero, come on, focus. There's no way this isn't focusing. I know this can focus this close. Right, there we go. Spin it around. It's not that easy to see on camera, or maybe it is on the full screen, but this battery is definitely swollen. Anyway, yeah, something, I don't know the full ins and outs, but the way that the batteries work is, well, once they die, something to do with the internal layers or some kind of thing, reaction where it forms crystals, and those crystals can puncture through into the different layers of the battery, and then when you try and charge it up, it causes a short circuit inside and basically either continues to expand and explode or just sets on fire, or it's not good. That's the crux of what I've read and the do's and don'ts. There's probably a better explanation, but I think the ultimate takeaway is if the battery is reading anything less than probably, what did I read? I think I read anything less than like 2.7 volts. It should just be binned and chucked, because there's a chance that it started to internally malfunction. So that is going to be disposed of properly from my house. Anyway, moving on. We need to check to see if this will power up still. I'm pretty sure it will. It obviously didn't because the battery was dead. Best thing to have if you don't have a like bench power supply, if you just get one of these off Amazon, they just take AA's and there's two crocodile clips on the end. Obviously 2 AA's is all we really need to use to power the Game Boy Advance before. So I'm just going to grab 2 known charged AA's, and if you get the IKEA ladders that I have, these are a little bit too thick for this device, so I had to take like a sandpaper and try and shave down the inside because they're just a couple mils a bit too big. But anyway, let's make sure that's not on. Yeah, it's in the opposition. Now obviously I don't have anything to actually clip onto other than I could maybe just, yeah, so let's go, so positive there and negative. I don't want it to touch other components, but I think that should be okay there. Go ahead and switch it on at the battery pack and then turn it on. Do we have a light? Let's see. There we go. I've heard, oh, there's the light. I was looking on the wrong side. And then there was the sound of it turning on. So let me see if I can turn that up. Wait, that's probably the wrong way. Yeah, I mean, that speaker's like super quiet as well. So it boots on. What have we got? We've got the GBA FlexAMP and not that one. This one here. The power cleaner. So this one, GBA power cleaner, again by Angry Helder. This one sits kind of like this. It's nice and flush. I may have to swap out the lens so you can get a closer zoom up to this. So just 1 second. Right, so I think that's the best I'm going to get in terms of a zoom with enough like clearance so I can work in here. But effectively what we have is a small little flexible PCB that sits on top of a couple of capacitors here, and just enables a cleaner power draw from the batteries, especially when we've got say an upgraded speaker running and a IPS mod as well. That's going to draw more power. Let me see if I can just set my focus to manual here so it doesn't keep flickering. So 1 second. Right, manual focus mode. It shouldn't keep jumping and changing the focus, but here we are, ready to go. So all we need to do is, I say all, we just need to get this lined up with those small little tiny capacitors and basically add some solder so that each of the contacts either side will take. Now, I have a soldering iron which we've just used, but the tip, as you can see here, if I bring it up to the C5, is way too big. So I need to, I think that should be not too hot anymore. Yeah, I need to switch out for a smaller tip on that. Annoyingly, I think I've lost my bent conical 0.2 millimeter. That's probably putting it, yeah. I've kind of lost that one somewhere. So I've got a 0.5 and a 1. I think the 1 mil might be too big. The 0.5, that should be okay. Let's give it a try. Right, so I don't want to lift the resistor, but just want to introduce a bit more solder to it. It's probably not enough, but let's go over to the C6. And then I'm going to add some to the board itself. So all those little edges need some solder applied. So let's go ahead, add a bit more flux. I really do not like this liquid stuff. It just, you have to use loads of it, then it gets everywhere. It burns off really quickly. But let's go ahead and add some on. Okay, so there isn't a great deal of exposed copper that the solder can sit on, but it should be enough there that when we introduce to the board here, we can bridge them nicely. So it's in place. More flux just on the area, just so it can hopefully take a bit better. Okay, I think that's managed to do it quite well. Let's clean that up. And then also a quick gander at this. So we'll look. I think we're good to go. So what we should do now then is, with a bit of IPA, let's give it a clean. So just get a little bit of IPA on a toothbrush, and then just gently clean that up. Okay, so it's been a few days actually since I last picked this up, mainly because I needed to buy some more flux. So I got some Chip Quick, which I've kind of looked online is a pretty decent brand. Got a new solder sucker as well. I saw this recommended. This is like ultra cool looking solder sucker. It's a lot better looking than the previous one I had, and also a lot better quality. Anyway, what we need to move on to do now is, I think, well, we need to get the FlexAMP installed, as well as the new speaker. So where this needs to go is kind of on the reverse, and I think realistically, because it kind of sits just like this. Again, I know it's quite a small little part, but it sits just here, touching this last pin at the end, S1. I'm just trying to kind of get it to sit flush, but I can't because there's some, I think it's these speakers that kind of poke through a little bit, but I've got to get SP tacked there. Yeah, SP. It's the speakers here. I could probably maybe cut them flush, but I don't want it to be too weak. Yeah, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is desolder the speakers, because that needs to be out the way, and then maybe solder in the new speaker and just try and keep it as flat as possible. I don't know how I'm going to kind of manage that, but maybe tin snip it off, but we'll see. Right, that's the speaker removed. So in order to get this FlexAMP on, we've got to go into, let me zoom in here. So this FlexAMP here, as I was kind of saying early on, it attaches to this pin here on the card reader. We need to tin up SP and volume, which then connect or like attach to the SP there. In fact, I think I have a previous version here. Look, what version do we have? So we only have, don't connect to ground, which is interesting. Well, I do connect to ground, but I think it's somewhere else. So let me just line this up again. Kind of sits just like that. There's SP, and ground, I think, is possibly coming from, yeah, it looks like it's coming from one of those resistors. So let's go ahead and tin up SP and a bit of S1, and then we can tackle that I think that's C9, actually, capacitor C9. We can tackle that later. So SP, bit of flux on that, S1, touch on there. Okay, let's just add a bit of solder to SP. And then just add a bit of fresh solder to S1. I'm going to try and add a bit of solder here to our board. So I'm going to kind of do it a little bit, and I could do it on screen. There it is. So we got SP, S1, just there, and ground. So let's get some solder onto those points. start of SP. Didn't really want to take on ground. There's a little bit on it there. This one. Okay, that should be good enough. You kind of need to really line it up perfectly, otherwise the rest of the components might not sit up properly. Okay, that's not great, but I'll come back to that one in a bit. Let's get SP down and done. And then finally the ground point. Go. This is out of focus. How is this out of focus? I've got it on autofocus. Oh yeah, I did it on the FlexAMP, didn't I? My bad. There we go. And then just press it down. Just like that. Okay, so I think we're good. Let me have a quick inspection. Okay, so I messed up. I need to desolder the speaker and actually solder it to the board here rather than the GBA board. So I'm gonna hopefully see if I can desolder it from this side, if I get it on camera. Yeah, that's fine. There we go. One done. And the second one done. Okay, batteries connected. Let's switch the battery pack on. Switch it on. See if we get a light. Do we get a light? I think the switch is a bit dodgy. Oh, there we go. Okay, that was really loud. Let's try it again. Yeah, it's a bit too loud, but if I bring the speaker down a bit, let's see. It's a bit too like crackly. That could be... Oh, that's so much louder. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is take this board and reattach the battery contacts so that when it sits into the shell, there's obviously the contacts for the batteries. I removed them originally because we had the LiPo mod in there, but I need to re-put them back in. And now we should be able to just push it through the available holes. Yeah, just kind of like this. Right. Tweezers. Right, now it's through. We'll just need to add some solder so it stays. Hopefully it doesn't fall through. Right, so this is the shell front where we need to put a screen cover on, a screen lens, and the screen itself. Now, this is a aftermarket one, and I think this is from FunnyPlaying themselves. I may have said earlier on in the video, but my point being that the LCD screen that I purchased, the backlit screen, I think pretty much sits flush. So kind of there it is. I'll try and hold it up a bit. It sits in kind of perfectly with the way that the shell has been formed. So I don't need to do any actual cutting or removal of plastic on the shell itself. That will just fit in quite nicely there, which is good. So the main thing I have to do now is get it connected up with the board. So here is, and this is an old, I brought this a good number of years ago, so I think this is now an outdated version of how the FunnyPlaying IPS mod works. But we've got left and right, which we need to solder in, select, and then ground. But the thing is, I only have 3 wires, so I'm a bit unsure as to which ones need soldering. I'm pretty certain left and right need soldering because they're the bumpers that you use to change the brightness if you're holding down select. And I would have thought ground and obviously select needs to be known when it's being pressed as well, so we need a wire for select. It's the ground wire I'm a bit unsure about. So I'm just going to double check that 1 second. Okay, so I don't see anything on the official FunnyPlaying website, but obviously we plan to have the ability to control the brightness. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and get a bit of wire that I've got, some really thin Kynor wire, I think it's called, something like that, copper wire, whatever. And I'll just make a ground onto the same ground point that I've used for the FlexAMP mod. Yeah, so I was just having a quick look at that there, thinking, right, so let's test this actually. Let's get this plugged in, connected up. So connected at the ribbon cable there, it just presses into that connector just down there. And now I think I need to use, what does that say? So I think this is a 40 pin board, and on the FunnyPlaying kit I've got, it's either, well, we'll just match it up and see what fits. So if this one's too wide, no, that fits fine, and that one is going to be too small. Yeah, too small. So it's this larger one. That's fine. Go ahead and connect that in. Close it up. Ooh, nothing on the screen at all. Interesting. Let's try the old screen. Let's turn that off. Okay, so I just tested it off camera, but my camera overheated and turned off because it's been filming that long. And what I'd done is I'd connected this wrong, so it needs to be this way plugged in with those contacts facing up. Connect it, and then I'll just flip it over like that. And then go ahead and switch it on. Let's see if we can see it on screen. There we go. And beautiful, but no sound, which is strange. Let's try that again. Ooh, interesting. Beautiful screen, but no sound. So let me just have a quick check of this. We're all connected up. I'm going to flip the screen over so we can see it actually come on. Let's go ahead and turn the device on. Ah. And now we get sound. I've no idea what that error was. Let's just turn it off and turn it back on. Perfect, right, okay. Screen works, sound now works, even though it didn't before. Very bizarre. But let's get this set up so we can also then control the screen. So all I'm going to do is just tin up these pads. Beautiful. Let's turn that off for a second. Now, we need wires soldered to various points. This wire is so thin, I can barely pick it up off the desk. Let's just zoom out a touch here. So we've got the ground that could just kind of go to ground, which is at the end of the cartridge connector. We need to attach left and right to the bumpers, and then select goes to TP2. So we need to find TP2 on the board, and that is roughly, let's have a little poke around. I think it's on the other side actually. TP2, there's TP3, TP2 is right there. So I'm also going to just put a bit of solder on that, tin it up, and then we'll go ahead and connect the wire. So go ahead and tin up TP2. And then we can take one of the wires that we were given and then just roughly figure out which way it's going to be routed. So it's kind of have to, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and attach it away from the buttons. Just like that. Put it into the actual board, connect up the cable so it's locked in place, and then we can just go from there. So this obviously sits in here like this. It gets folded over best it can. Yep. Just like that. And then all I'm going to do is just tack that wire on, I think, just like this. Now it's the top left of each of these, so one there and one there. So let's go ahead and just connect these now. Perfect, just like that. And that's going to go into the left, just like that. I have to do this with my other hand. And then we'll bring the right one over. Like that. Right, they might not be routed perfectly, but let's go ahead and try and give this a rough test fit. So what we're going to have to do is take the front shell and kind of, well, basically at this point, permanently attach the front screen. So I've got some tape here. Let's just line this up. I think that's, yeah, that's all correct. It's got the slots. So if we just peel this out, you can see there's two slots at the top here. They match up with the slots just there. Oh, three slots actually, my bad. Beautifully. That's about the best I'm going to get this. So where's the, let's just get the back side of the tweezers and just make sure it's all stuck down. And then from there, we can go ahead and just peel that tape off. And that's ready for the screen. Right, before I go ahead and just drop that screen in, I'm pretty confident it's this way oriented. So that lens protector, which I'm going to take off in a second, the lens protector there at the top left as you see it, flip it over, it's going to sit top left of the screen. So if we flip this over, you can see it would be top left of the screen there. So I'm going to remove the screen protector and then go ahead and drop this in. I'm going to line it up actually with the two from the side there, or the three little notches, and then just push that in. That seems to be stuck. It ain't moving. Looks good. And actually what I want to do just now is, before we do anything else, I'm going to get the front lens on so that no, or as little dust gets under there as possible. So we've got the front lens here. Let's go ahead and remove the tape. Okay, there we go. Remove. And then one thing I did notice is you can see the bottom of that adhesive. I didn't think you'd be able to see the bottom of it through the lens, but you can. So let's try something very risky. I gently keep scoring along this, and hopefully that's cutting it. Okay, so once again my camera overheated and turned off, but I basically got the lens put on. I've cut off as much as that, the watch that you can see at the top there. There were a little bit of specks of dust that got in, so I had to remove the front lens, but just do that by twisting, but ever so gently. But the front lens is on, it's glass. It looks amazing on this clear body, but we still aren't finished yet. So now we've got to get the board installed. So I think the best way to do this is probably to, well, just have an attempt. Oh, first thing to do, put some buttons in. So I've got some clear buttons. Right, so my idiot self did not order clear bumpers or buttons. So I think I'm going to take the purple ones from my previous build and put them in instead. And that sits on there like that with the membrane on those. Perfect. Buttons in. So now we've got the correct buttons this time. B sits in there, A sits in there. Start select, annoyingly just this boring grey, whatever. And then the silicone pads for those buttons. Okay, so kind of all good-ish. I might take the start and select out for now because we've got to get the connector back onto this. I'm just taking the ribbon here, the ribbon on the screen just needs to be folded over like so and then connected in. There we go, eventually. Which means it sits just like that. So I'm going to take this foam that it comes with. It's a bit of foam here, and you're supposed to put it, I think, in between possibly, but do you know what? Because that's not going to make contact there, that's absolutely fine. It's, let's try that. Is that in? Kind of, maybe. I don't want to force something and break something, but it's the speaker. It needs to be twisted around so that it slots in. There we go. Right, this is the last time, I swear to God, if the camera shuts off because it's overheating, I've got a fan pointing at it now to keep it cool. But anyway, I just realised I forgot to do ground. I think it's going to be fine. Anyway, let's get this finished and put back together. So I've got to use the buttons from the previous build. I don't have any clear ones, but you know what? I think this will still look pretty good. I'm confident it'll look interesting and decent enough. So if this is the back of it, that would be right. So we can drop that in just like that. And that would be left and drop that in. Pretty sure it's meant to sit on the inside of the bumper here. Let's drop that in first. There we go. Then that on top. And I did put the silicone membrane in for the start and select, kind of off camera. The camera died, as I said, but that should be it. So let's put the case on, and that will hold it all together-ish. Right, screws are all back in. Let's get the battery in and actually see if it bloody turns on. Where's the battery cover? Just to finish it off. Lovely jubbly. And let's go ahead and switch it on. Oh, you know what? It actually looks mint. I love the purple. The purple looks good. I need some purple start select. So in fact, let's go and select. Can lower the brightness. I can lower it. I can bring it back up. I'll get some better shots of this, but that is it done, finally.